Okay, so what I'm about to talk about, it should terrify every single man that is either married, in a long-term relationship and thinking about marriage, or just serious about building a family, okay? So a few days ago, I was hanging out with a female friend of mine at her house. We were just in her kitchen having a drink while she was making food. So we were just talking. She's in her early 30s. And so we got on the subject of our 20s and what that was like. And I told her, a lot of the stuff that I did in my 20s, and said that I was glad that I got to live my 20s the way that I did, because I did have a lot of fun. I had a lot of really great experiences. I had a lot of great experiences, a lot of horrible experiences. And yes, I made tons of mistakes and I did things that I'm not particularly proud of. But regardless, I did those reckless things, those immature things when I was supposed to do them, which was when I was younger, right? And if you want to learn more about that, then there'll be a link at the end of this video where I talk about the mistakes that I made in my 20s and how it changed my perspective on life. But yeah, and I was thinking about, as we were talking, I was thinking about if I hadn't gone through those things and I missed out on them, and I decided to live those things out in my 30s and 40s, and it sounded awful to me. I couldn't fathom wanting to do what I did in my 20s now. It's just unthinkable. And then she said she knew a lot of people that were like that never got to live that way in their 20s, and they felt regret because of that. They felt cheated out on the experience of what they were supposed to experience in their 20s, right? The experiences that are sold to us through movies and television and music, right? And if you think about it, in your 20s, you really are given a pass. I don't know. The bar couldn't be lower when it comes to expectations when you're in your 20s, right? You're not really expected to have much figured out. Nobody is shocked in the slightest when you make mistakes, because you're still figuring things out. You're figuring out who you are, and your frontal lobe isn't fully developed, right? So you have that excuse to pull out of your back pocket when you need it. The way our culture is structured, you can pretty much extend your immaturity almost a full decade past your late teens, and just keep the party going. So that window, it stays open, I'd say, longer than it probably should. Because things didn't used to be that way. The invention of the teenager is a relatively new invention, but that's a conversation for another day. But when you're in your 20s, you feel invincible, right? Your body, it bounces back, it recovers a lot quicker. The stakes aren't as high when you're younger. You don't have as many people really depending on you. In fact, if anything, you're still depending on other people. So you can afford to be reckless in ways that you simply can't later on in life. So I emphasized to her that I'm really glad that I got that out of my system when I did, because if I was one of those people that craved that stuff in my 30s or now in my 40s, then I would be a complete loser. That's the way I see it. I was explaining how I didn't understand how they do it. I can only assume that those people are broken in and out of jail, right? That they're not living very stable lives. But then she fired back with, yeah, but not everyone gets the chance to do that. And then what she said next, I wasn't expecting. So she told me that she has several female cousins who got married young, right? In their early 20s. And they have kids now that are teens. And so yeah, but they've got the whole shebang. They've got the husband, they got the home, they got the kids, everything. And according to her, since they got married young and they didn't get to have the typical 20s experience, now they're craving dancing at clubs and getting drunk and having sex with other men. And yes, she gave me permission to talk about this. That's why I'm going to be keeping it vague. So, but I wasn't surprised, but it was just, come on, man, really? Really? And she said that they feel like they never got to find themselves. You hear that a lot. They never got to find themselves and truly know who they were as women, as individuals. And that is where I want to really put the parking brake on for a second and address that, the whole finding yourself thing. Because for all of human civilization, all of it, all of human history, women discovered who they were by being wives, by being mothers, right? By living for something bigger than themselves, something outside of themselves. That was the peak female experience. It was not viewed as a cage or a compromise of any kind. It was their ultimate calling. Not just their biological imperative, but their calling. It's what gave them purpose and meaning. It's what gave them happiness and joy. The act of raising children and standing beside a strong man through hard times. Not just the good, but also the hard times. That is how a woman learned who she was. As a wife, as a mother, and yes, as a woman, as an individual woman, as a human being even. Okay? But now, women are socially engineered to believe that none of that even counts for anything. That if you build your life around a family, you somehow missed out on something. So yeah, of course, women are now, they're pushing all this stuff off and they're having their fun, and then later on in life, then they're just settling, right? But that also is another conversation. I'm not talking about that part of it. But they get sold this idea that the real and authentic version of themselves is somewhere out there on a dance floor at 2 a.m. It's not in the home with their beautiful children and their loving husband. No, it's out there in the red light district. I don't know, somewhere out downtown at some freaking disgusting club with disgusting people and loud music. It blows my mind. But unfortunately, one of those cousins of hers actually acted on those feelings. So she didn't just sit with the thoughts. She did the thoughts. She did the thing. And what made it worse is that when my friend was telling me this, she was telling me this like it's normal, like it's just something that happens. Like oh, it rains sometimes. Yeah, just what women go through. And so I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, dude, these are married women with kids and a husband who works very hard and sacrifices and does everything he's supposed to do as a man, and still his wife is sitting on this thought, these stupid thoughts, these disgusting thoughts. And I asked her, well, do they even love their husbands? I mean, honestly, do they love them? And she said yes. And I don't believe that for a second. These women, they have a nice warm home to come to. They have a man who loves them and is committed to them. They have children that need her. And she is still actively entertaining the idea of burning all that down so that she can go dance at a club and sleep with strangers. That is not love. That is not love. Just think about the man in this situation for a second. My heart goes out to them. Because these guys, they have no idea that they feel that way. This guy has no idea that his wife feels this way. He's going to work and coming home and doing everything that he's supposed to do, and she's at home or wherever on her driving to spend his money, harboring those feelings about the life that she didn't get to live before she met him. That is sad and pathetic. And what really gets me is that our culture will tell this woman that she is brave if she decides to act on these feelings. There will be especially if she's on social media, there will be a line of people, a long line, that will validate her journey or whatever euphemism she decides to slap on it, right? And not to mention there's a plethora of therapists out there, primarily female therapists, that will validate her feelings and maybe even tell her that she owes it to herself to explore them, right? At the expense of her family. at the expense of her family. And if she decides to blow up her family, the sick part is she can still manage to take that man to divorce court and take half of whatever he's built and likely primary custody of his kids. She can take away half of his stuff and even his children and interfere with his relationship with them and his influence. And here's my warning to you, guys out there, you, man, listening. Men are told that if you start a family, you need to find a younger woman. And yes, that is biologically sound advice. It checks out. She's more beautiful, she's more fertile, and it's also logical because she will have less baggage. Yes, that makes sense. That has always made sense, and that men are drawn to younger women who are younger than them, right? If you're 25, then you want a woman who's 20. If you're 30, you want a woman who's 25 or 23 or 22, whatever. So yeah, it makes sense. But where you need to be careful is considering the level of exposure she has had to social engineering. And in 2026, the year of our Lord, I would say that no woman is really a safe bet. Most, if not all, women are feminists. It's only the degree to how much of a feminist they are, I would say. Even conservative women who claim to be traditional, right? Because men out there in this men's space, they do encourage you to move to another country where there's more traditional values and more conservative women, right? But even those conservative traditional women still hold some of those same beliefs. They were programmed too. They just weren't programmed as hard. They were able to shake some of that programming, or it wasn't effective. But it's effective on a lot of women. I mean, the point being is you need to take into account that you need to think ahead. You need to be thinking 5, 10, 15 years into the marriage or the long-term relationship of having this family, because a lot of men, they aren't told that the woman you married young and built a family with might one day look around and feel like she missed out on something. And that feeling, that craving, our culture is going to validate it. All right? They are not going to validate your boundaries. Or your take on it, your valid take on it. Because yes, women are hypergamous. They are wired to look for the best option possible. And they will upgrade, dude. Hypergamy does not go away after the wedding. That's not something new. You probably already knew that, right? It might go dormant for a while until she gets bored or you lose your job or get cancer. I have no idea. Basically until what attracted her to you, it fades or goes away. Because yeah, life gets comfortable, you get complacent, and then that feeling of being comfortable, it does start to feel like a cage to her, right? Especially if someone is whispering in her ear long enough what she supposedly missed out on. They're like, hey, you know what you missed out on while you were, having this family, this beautiful family. It's just, and this isn't a knock on every woman who marries young, just to be clear, okay? You always got to do that, right? Got to make it clear. Because, yeah, I will say, yes, some of the best wives and mothers out there, they got married young, right? They're just exceedingly rare in my generation and then the younger generation, right? The Gen Z. But regardless, men need to think. They need to think. They need to think about this. They need to think about this and the fact that this is... The woman you're marrying isn't just who she is today. She's who she's going to be when the culture has spent a decade telling her that her sacrifices made her a victim. Okay? And back to my friend. So I don't know the ideologies of these specific women, but if I had to guess, I'd say they were more liberal. But they could have always, they could have always been liberal, or they started out conservative and then veered off to the left. That does happen because women as a whole, they are trending further left and men are trending further right. So there is a huge gap there. And also the further left that the culture moves, which it is, the louder that message gets. And at this point, yeah, our culture couldn't be any further left and out of its mind. And the cultural message to these women, to your wives, to your soon-to-be wives, is that that her personal happiness is the most important thing, right? Above family, above commitment, above her vows that she made to you, okay? And the deepest and most dangerous part of that programming is that it has convinced women to dismiss the idea that living for someone other than themselves is how they actually grow as a person. So they've successfully sold women on hedonism and solipsism, right? The idea that your entire experience of the world should revolve around you and your pleasure, right, lady? That's what women are being sold, and they're buying it. They've been buying it. And now you're seeing women leaving good men and destroying their children and the stability that their family provided, that the two-parent household provided these children, and they're just burning everything down to the ground. Everything that was real and meaningful. And for what? For surface level pleasures and a feeling, right? This temporal feeling, this selfish feeling. And you see them on TikTok constantly celebrating it and telling their audience, their followers, how free and liberated they are. That they finally did whatever they wanted. Now they can finally do whatever they want to do, right? They have no more constraints. But then you see a lot of them a few months later start making videos about how much they regret it. They deeply now regret it. They shouldn't have divorced him, right? They destroyed the family. They made a huge mistake. But guess what? It's too late, okay? The damage is already done. You made your bed, and now you have to sleep in it. And this is the world that we live in now that I'm describing. We live in a system that is built to profit from this destruction. So of course it continues on in perpetuity. These women, they sacrifice their family for their happiness because their feelings get validated by their friends and by society and by the culture, right? These women, they get an attorney who knows exactly how to use a no-fault divorce to take everything that you built. Men genuinely want to be fathers and husbands. That's not something that they've been programmed into. And that used to be the case for women, but not anymore. That's been programmed out of them. And I don't have a perfect answer for you today. But what I have is this. If you're thinking about starting a family, think long and hard, dude. Think past the first few years when everything is new and exciting and you feel like you found the one, okay? Think about who she's going to be when our disgusting culture has spent enough time whispering in her ear when you're not around, or even when you are around, that she deserves more. That she gave up something important by marrying you, and it's not too late to miss out on it. Think about that. Because the men in these situations, those husbands that are sitting at home right now with no clue about their wife wanting to go dance at the club instead of hanging out with him and their children. Those men, they thought they did everything right. And maybe they did and maybe they didn't. Point being, either way, they're not safe. And neither are you.